We small islands may be at the forefront of impacts, but this is an issue for the whole world.
Case Study 2 addresses the case of Kiribati and Tuvalu as disappearing islands threatened by rising sea levels.
Growing up on the island, we did not think or understand what climate change was about. But now I can see the changes in weather patterns, and I have become more anxious when I think about it.
Our team is called INCLUSIVITY because we want to consider nations, communities, languages under socially inclusive visions in today and years to come. We have approached this through our transdisciplinary knowledges in computer science, politics and international relations, philosophy and economics, technologies and innovation. We looked at Case Study 2 and addressing the case of Kiribati and Tuvalu as disappearing islands threatened by rising sea levels, potentially causing these communities to become climate refugees. The IPCC's mathematical climate representations urge the need to mitigate carbon emissions below 2 degrees. By 2030, under a highest emission scenario, the rise in sea levels is projected to be in the range of 4 to 14 centimeters, and in the next 100 years, it's pushing about a meter of sea level rise globally. But before this happens, the soil salinization and lack of fresh water that will render the nations uninhabitable. The impact will also be global, requiring resettlement in the medium to the long term. Kiribati and Tuvalu are atoll states with average height of 2 meters above sea level and the highest reaching area of 5 meters. Rising seas is existentially threatening their livelihoods, well-being, health, food security, sovereignty, and the existence of their cultural ways of being, knowing, and doing, including their interconnectedness to the land, to the ocean, their kinships, ancestors, and spirits.
As rising sea levels continue to be exacerbated by climate change, we need to understand and address what is causing this in the short and long term. Our problem statement is, how might we minimize the severe climate change impacts of rising sea levels using humanitarian-based technologies to empower threatened communities such as Tuvalu and Kiribati? We considered this in our empathy map, highlighting from a human perspective of the issues and community needs in order to assist island communities to accommodate rising sea levels. Careful considerations for minority groups is taken into account to ensure accessibility and inclusivity. The solution approach enables for transdisciplinary intervention to establish strong future-proof partnerships between NGOs, Australian government, and Tuvalu and Kiribati individuals.
Coral reefs are one of the biggest biodiversity areas in the world, more so even than the rainforest. And everywhere in the world, coral reefs are in trouble. Artificial reefs have been demonstrated, when they're clean, to bring proper environmental benefits to the already stressed natural reefs around the world.
Our solution to sea levels rising is twofold: artificial reefs and floating houses. Artificial reefs are created out of man-made products, including recycled materials, buildings, and plastic. And they will be made into reefs that develop over time that becomes a habitat for fish and increases the fish population and biodiversity in the long term. It will also help improve tourism, as coral reefs are a big tourism industry. Our second implementation will focus on restructuring the current houses to be floating. These buoyant base of floating houses is made up of recycled plastics, especially plastic or aluminium bottles, which can contain more air. These will help lessen the damage from floods and storm surges. Both of these solutions address our problems of minimizing the risk of sea levels rising and also addressing biodiversity and cultural respect. Down the road, hopefully we'll be able to incorporate AI to help monitor sea life and classify marine life. It would also be able to track migration and help protect the ecosystems near the island. Not only are coral reefs important to help prevent sea levels rising and mitigate storms and cyclones, but they also represent an economic value to the world of $36 billion a year, and so they're a big boom for the economy of these small Pacific islands. So all over, it helps protect the sea levels from... We will finance our project through a few sources. The first is utilising the funding from DFAT that Australia already spends on both education and climate change. Australia donates around $2 million in funding. The international community and governments may also donate, particularly those around the Pacific Islands and those who will be affected by climate refugees. And independent philanthropists and social investors may also see the social and environmental need of this.
Our vulnerable island countries will go under the water if nothing is done urgently at this stage.